that it's an incredibly valuable quality to develop. And it takes training, it takes practice. It's not easy to sort of get in touch with that feeling if you're not, if your oxytocin isn't off the charts because you're holding a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that we can train ourselves to do, and it's an ideal that we can relate to.
Right, the training toward the ideal. Yes, and I want to ask against what the way the culture looks at so many of these things. If I will say to a client, what is it like? What do you imagine it would be like if you felt some compassion for yourself, or some compassion for this part of yourself? And they might say something like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to pity myself. I don't want to feel sorry for myself." If I will say, I'm sorry you're going through this. Oh, you have no reason to feel sorry. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to feel sorry for myself and self-pity.
Yeah.
So there's a great deal of confusion around that as well.
I think the difference between self-pity and I think what you're describing as self-pity and what I'm talking about as self-compassion is the difference between, in self-pity, that's a moment when I recognize that I'm suffering and I accept that I'm suffering, but I believe that what happens to me in life, that I have no power to make any of it better. And what happens to me in that I am the victim of my circumstances and I have no agency. In self-compassion, there's this recognition and acceptance of suffering, but there's also a powerfully active agency, which we could describe as the ability to care, to take care. And that I know that rather than so pity, I might describe as, you see the newborn baby crying. I want you to imagine as a parent. I mean, some people I'm sure can relate to this, but it's not our best moments. Your baby starts to cry, and you just sit down next to your baby and you cry too. And then the more you cry, the more your baby cries. The more your baby cries, the more you cry. And you're just like, yeah, this, I can't believe this is happening to us. That's really different than seeing your baby crying and saying, picking your baby up and saying, it's okay if you want to cry. Babies cry. We all cry. But I'm here for you. I am capable and strong, and I'm here for you in whatever you need. And I think that's the powerful difference between self-pity and self-compassion. And that's people believe that if I accept myself, that actually comes back to something we talked about last time. It comes from this belief that if I accept myself, that's an entirely passive way of being, rather than it's a foundation for every type of acting with real freedom.
Right. Yes. The belief is that it's passive and complacent, and you're not trying. Yes. So this is excellent Tim Desmond, and this is Dr. Duffy Spencer. We are Just Relationships, WHPC 90.3, and Tim Desmond, Desmond, wrote Self-Compassion in Psychotherapy, a book, and the Self-Compassion Skills Workbook. By the way, how can people get a copy of either or both, Tim?
Oh, I mean, anywhere that books are sold. You can, local bookstores or anywhere on the internet. They should be able to find it. It's with W.W. Norton.
Okay, by Norton Press. So when people tell me, my clients tell me, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to revisit the pain. Why should I relive that pain? And I explain to them that you are not reliving the pain as if it is happening now. You are looking and being with that pain from the vantage of a nurturing, loving parent or teacher, and you are being with the pain. You are not the pain, you are being with the pain. So, is that something about what you're talking about now?
It's exactly what I'm talking about. In Buddhist psychology, there's this idea. It's interesting. In Western psychology, there's not really clear distinction or sort of an operational definition about when am I processing something and when am I ruminating.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like if I were to say, if someone's saying, okay, well, I'm processing this, but how can I know if I'm really processing it versus how can I know if I'm just sort of ruminating?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in Buddhist psychology, there's a clear distinction, and the distinction is the presence of compassion.
Oh.
The idea is that if I bring up some suffering in me, and when I bring it up, that I'm able to hold that suffering, sort of completely envelop that suffering with loving awareness, with compassion, then the effect is that suffering begins to transform. It begins to get smaller. However, every time I get in touch with some suffering in myself, if I'm not able to hold it, to fully envelop it with loving and accepting awareness, then every time I bring it up, that suffering, it becomes stronger. And that's what we would call kind of ruminating.
Yes. I describe that as kind of like a washing machine where there's no letting out of the dirty water. It's just the same old dirty water. There's no rinse water. There's nothing fresh there. The freshness being the compassionate self-observer, or also what we call mindfulness. So, Tim, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I'm wondering if you can, in view of our context, talk a little bit more about mindfulness, what that means, because it's one of those elusive words. We can say be in present time, be with the moment. And, I want to ask you, sometimes I put so much emphasis on mindfulness that I don't think of the past when I'm with my friends and they'll talk about this or that, and I will listen. I will be there totally for them, and then they'll ask about myself. I may have just gone to Paris the week before, but I'm not there. I'm not in Paris, I'm with them. And so, in some ways, I've lost my ability to tell stories because I'm just not there anymore. It's kind of weird. So I don't know. We're mindful. We're in present moment, and then we're not thinking about the past, and we're not necessarily planning for the future. This can be confusing as well.
I think the word mindfulness, there's an idea in Buddhist psychology that words can get sick and begin to lose their meaning. And I believe that might be something that's happening to mindfulness, the word mindfulness right now.
Yes.
People are using that word to mean something very different than what my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, means when he talks about mindfulness. And for me, what matters most, what I would recommend to your listeners is don't worry about whether you have a sort of correct definition of mindfulness, but instead consider letting go of that word and thinking about learning how to spend time listening to what is truly alive in you. And if you spend time and attention listening to what's truly alive in you in a way that you're able to see and appreciate the beauty of what's alive in you, then that will be an incredibly beneficial exercise. You can call that mindfulness. If what you're practicing isn't necessarily changing your, if whatever you're practicing is changing your life for the better, then that's wonderful. If you're not so sure if it is, then there's a good chance that we might be sort of, in Buddhism we say we've picked up the snake by the wrong end, meaning where we've sort of misunderstood a deep teaching to the point that we're not able to really benefit from it. The way that I like to describe what I find valuable in my life is create space and time to listen to what's alive in you, and to learn how to listen to what is alive in you in a way that helps you to see the beauty and see that what's alive in you is lovable, and allow that living energy in you to motivate you. Because ultimately, for me, the practice of mindfulness is about the practice of becoming more alive, being more deeply in touch with the life in me. And so that's what I would suggest. If you sit down for your 15 minutes on a pillow, I would worry less about your breath and more about what feels alive for you in that moment, and just sit and pay attention to that.
I love it. Because so many people talk about mindfulness and they say, do the body scan, of course, and practice conscious breathing. Yes. And I love this question. What is alive in me now? What feels alive in me? It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And I think that's a very laser beam kind of question to get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. So we have 1 minute. 1 minute left, Tim Desmond, Desmond. I want to thank you for being such a wonderful guest and such a good listener and good responder, good teacher, good teller, good sender of messages, and for being an author and for taking your own suffering and turning it around into something so fruitful and so beautiful to really teach others what that's about. So, yeah. Tim Desmond, the Self-Compassion Skills Workbook, a 14-day plan to transform your relationship with yourself. Thanks again, Tim Desmond. This is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.
The views expressed on air are not necessarily those of WHPC, its management, or Nassau Community College. Responsible opposing viewpoints will be considered by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu or by mail at WHPC 1 Education Drive, Garden City, New York 11530. Thanks for listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Every sound, every note, including the bass, on this track is played by a monkey.
American Hit Radio, Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Let's go!
60 different types of programming.
There's truly something for everyone right here. FM,
HD,
Amazon Echo,
Google